Ever get curious about why you default to certain emotional states? Depression, anger, jealousy? Or do you notice a friend or a loved one that tends to respond in a certain way? What if you were able to understand why you default to these states and what information there is there for you? Hi, I'm producer Steve Lassard, and welcome to the Wired for Wellbeing podcast, where each week I'm joined by Dr. Jeffrey Rutstein as we explore how understanding your nervous system can transform the way you live, love, and relate. Hi, Jeffrey. How are you today?
I'm great, Steve, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Jeffrey, in today's episode, I want to look at one of those default states, specifically anger.
Ooh.
And I have a short written question from an anonymous writer. Here's the question, and then let's talk about it.
Sounds good.
The person writes, "Why do I automatically default to anger when I get triggered? What deeper feelings am I trying to avoid?" So, Jeffrey, maybe we can start by just understanding this idea that there are these default states we go to.
Yeah. So most of us have patterns. We may split our time being either in sympathetic fight or flight, where we could have access to anger or worry, anxiety, irritability, or we could be spending a lot of time in shutdown and collapse, where we're feeling disconnected, demotivated, de-energized, not really connected to ourselves or others. Each of these states has slightly different survival value, but they all carry survival necessities. How we deal with potentially overwhelming stress or life threat, that's really what our nervous system is designed to handle.
So then what is it specifically in anger then? So why anger? Why might some people default to anger versus other states?
Okay, so for people who do default to anger, their system is a little bit more comfortable with anger, may feel a little bit more safe with anger than it may feel in certain other defensive states. So anger is one of the two sympathetic energies, fight or flight, that we can pick up on. What marks sympathetic energy or defensive states is that they're states of activation, they're states of engagement. I can do stuff to actively protect myself. I can flight, I can run away from the danger, or fight, I can fight and try to fend off the danger. The difference also, though, is in the qualities of our emotional experience of those states. For flight, we're afraid. We're feeling a bit smaller, less secure, and we need to get away from whatever the danger is. In contrast, anger is a very powerful activation that wants us to move towards the conflict, not away from it. It's about confronting our feelings or the other person's feelings, or holding on to the grudge or the irritation, or speaking our mind. And so anger is an important response. We do need it in life. And it's also a really important message. All dysregulation, for that matter, is an important message. And depending upon what state you dysregulate into, fight, flight, freeze, shutdown, collapse, that gives us more information about what the system is struggling with.
Okay, so why would someone then default to anger versus another state?
Well, as I mentioned a little bit before, it's partially because they have some sense of safety being angry. It feels safer, more allowed to be angry than it does to feel afraid or sad. And for most people, the dichotomy is more around vulnerability. So when I'm in shutdown and collapse, feeling sad, spacey, worn down, and much more passive, not active, not feeling I have my strength or my spine to get through the world, I'm feeling kind of collapsed and whipped. In that state, I feel vulnerable. I'm not able to really actively defend myself from attack. I'm not even to necessarily organize myself into some coherent action like getting work done or doing something else. And because of that, I'm very susceptible to outside influences and feel very vulnerable in my weakness, my perceived weakness. And so for some people, then moving into anger is a compensation for being stuck in that painful, feeling weak and small, insignificant and powerless, which are the feelings that are engendered when we slide into shutdown and collapse. If I jump up into anger, I have this fire that is helpful for protecting me. And by the way, it rockets me out of feeling so despairing. When I get angry, I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to do something with my feelings, not just drown in them. So there's helpful strategies that we have access to once we can tap into anger. We can't tap into them if we're in shutdown and collapse. We're just too busy floating and disconnecting from ourselves to really make good contact with what we're feeling and to do something about it.
I'm reflecting that, we're kind of leaning towards these helpful sides of anger. But what I'm hearing from the person who's written in is they actually don't like that they default to this. So um, maybe the question is like, what are the bad parts? Or why is it maybe bad to default to anger? Like, how does it not serve us?
So again, we need to contextualize this, right? So um, anytime anyone gets angry, it not only affects their nervous system, but it affects anyone who's in proximity. So a lot of times when we get angry, this may not be our conscious intent, but anger's intent is to push other people away. It's not to invite people in. It's not to make connection. If anything, it's to have conflict or disconnection. And that puts us in a different position again, where we're feeling more contained. We're not feeling so powerless. And it also can give the wrong signal. Our irritability is usually because some nerve in us has gotten plucked, a sense of vulnerability or shame. And we can talk more about that too, how that plays into anger. And our anger is a reaction, a protection against those feelings of feeling ashamed or bad or less than or too vulnerable and therefore not desired to be connected with or attached to. And what happens for us then is that we are reacting to protect ourselves from a painful emotional experience, but we're actually also then simultaneously creating another painful emotional experience. So our writer notices she gets angry and then is clearly not happy about having this one reaction to a lot of life. She would like to broaden her. She'd like to not always go into anger. So anger can be a destructive force too if it's not used skillfully, right? Let me go a little deeper with this in a particular direction. One of the ways that anger comes out a lot is because for many trauma survivors, intimacy and connection are both desired and can feel unsafe and threatening. So a lot of times in couples where one or both member of the couple has some trauma, they might be negotiating getting a little closer, becoming more intimate, either emotionally or physically. And again, trauma survivors will often have that longing, that desire for closeness, intimacy, connection, and attachment. But they will often also have another, so to speak, voice within their nervous system that's arguing for maintaining some distance. Again, it's usually intertwined with shame. The idea if you see me too closely, if we're too connected, you'll see the things that will push you away from me. Or if you're coming close to me, I'm aware of wanting and being afraid, and so I get irritated. I get irritated because I don't know how to choose between those two. And so my irritation is very effectively making a choice. If we were going to be close, try to get together, and I start, getting irritated and mouthing off or clamming up or something else, I put a kibosh on whatever was going to happen in the relationship in terms of connection. And instead, I've created a really strong boundary or wall, which only serves to, again, recreate earlier experiences for us of isolation or disconnection and not feeling safe and warmly connected with people who are significant in our lives. That can make the feelings of the past feel like they're alive in this moment too.
I'm cluing into, the person who wrote this question, seeing this response, and I'm also just aware of a story that I'll share of how quick it seems we can be to like snap into anger, how quick that response is. And the short version of the story is I was left someone a voicemail offering them a position, a job that I had open, and they called back and left another voicemail and very cordial, all of the things you would expect in a business setting. And they were clearly driving the car, but they were excited to call back when they got the message. And then in an instant, cursing, swearing, you, oh my, how dare you? And they got cut off by someone as they were driving down the road. And it was just really, it really stuck out to me how quickly they went from, you know, one nervous system state that was, learned behaviors and social norms to this like completely other state in a fraction of an instance. I'm sure some of that was their own startle response from like navigating the experience, but I was just, yeah. So I guess I want you to talk about the speed of anger and maybe how hard it is if this is something we're trying to be aware of, how it might hijack us, to use a word you use frequently.
Sure, sure. So anger is the fastest way to find some path back to a sense or feeling of more regulation. So it comes on strong. And remember, fight and flight are both near instant because we need to engage those as soon as possible in a truly dangerous situation. I need to assess, are you about to kill me? Do I need to run from you? Do I need to try to kill you? Are you a tiger? Are you a human? Friendly or foe? And all those things make me very alert, very quick to size you up and try to decide, are you an us or a them? So anger is wired to be fast. And for the most part, if anyone has spent any time trying to observe themselves or just watching themselves in any way, you'll find that whenever you get angry, it often can go from 0 to 60 or 600 in a split second. Like you were saying, you can be in one state one moment, and then anger can trigger you, and you can be deep into anger, not just mildly frustrated or a little annoyed, but like screaming at the top of your lungs, what the F are you doing? And how can you do this? And that was stupid. And how dare you? It's just our natural wiring. But because it's quick to come on, we will likely not stop it before it comes on, at least initially. But we will be able to notice once we've gone down that path, once we've launched down the anger path, that's where we can have choice. So let's circle back a bit towards our writer for this week. So number one, she's not broken. She's not doing anything wrong. Her nervous system has learned to use anger as a helpful tool for regulating or to feel more regulated. We're not so regulated when we're in anger, right, compared to being in ventral regulation. But anger for a lot of us can feel more coherent, can take out the chaos and struggle of things and make it kind of linear. They did that. That was wrong. That's why I'm upset. And this is what they need to do. It takes life and it makes it a little bit more one way or another, a kind of binary, often an oversimplification, and also often not necessarily representative truth. I may feel you did a horrible thing, but in truth, I may have misheard something you said. And once I get annoyed, I'm already going to be expecting you to say something more hurtful or attacking. I'm going to tend to mishear what you say to fit that distortion. And I'm already going to be building a case about why you're wrong and I'm right. And all that serves, right, is to disconnect. But again, if we grew up in a family of vulnerability was not respected or we were shamed, then we might very well find that we automatically switch to anger because it was what was allowed in the family, or it will help us defend some against some shame. So the question that I would begin to explore with our writer is, can she slow down a little bit once she notices she's got angry? Can she take a moment to name and notice and name, oh, I'm angry. And then do one small movement, a gesture that helps bring her back in. Hand to the heart, hand to the face and heart, awareness to your points of contact, different ways of beginning to relocate our awareness in the present moment with present moment sensations that are neutral. That begins to give us a little space from being in the center of the anger to being able to observe that we're angry. We still will feel it. We're not disengaging from it or suppressing it. We're just allowing ourselves to also have a moment of breathing space in the middle of the storm. And then, once we have a little breathing space, the next step is to become curious about, I wonder what set off my anger here. Was it vulnerability? Was it shame? Did someone hurt my feelings? As I've said a few times, the way that I look at things in my experience, there's 4 major drivers of anger: disappointment, hurt, or feeling that something is unfair or unjust. And so I would invite our writer to look through those lenses when she finds herself angry. What is she hurt by? What is she feeling disappointed by? What is she feeling is unfair or unjust? These are the feelings that are more vulnerable than just the anger, and they underlie the anger. Anger is always a reaction to something, right? It's not a primary emotion on its own, it's a primary reaction for some people. And for our writer today, she notices that, if it's nice out, she might get angry. Well, no, she doesn't get triggered probably when it's nice out. When she gets triggered and she gets strongly dysregulated, that's where she immediately goes into anger. And so the question could be is, why does anger feel safer to the nervous system? Not safer to her mind, but safer to the nervous system. And is there another way that she can relate to this anger without having to stay in it? Right? Because most of the time, our anger is an attempt to deflect pain as well. So if you said something that shamed me, it would feel hurtful and disappointing. And I could get angry about that because that would let me blame you instead of me falling into, of course I suck, I'm shameful. And the anger itself pulls me out of that dorsal collapse state of shame and blame. I can be up here and be a little righteous. Well, Steve, you shouldn't have done that. That was a totally wrong thing to do, and that wasn't fair. And if I'm up there, or can be close to up there, whether I say that to you or just feel that, in either way, my state has shifted from one of dark despair in the falling into the abyss to one of being angry and ready to fight and assert my rights or my views, or that I need you to respect me and not blow me off. So again, anger pushes people away. It has an impact on other people, but it also, for people who default to it, they were trained that that was the safest response to threat. So if our writer can figure out what feels threatened, her worth, her shame, her self-concept, or whether these triggers are also specifically about stuff from the family, feeling, like I said before, ashamed or not enough, or whatever was the main themes in the family, too emotional, too sad, right? That we will have learned through our family to adapt to the toughness standards of our family. How does that land?
I'm going to go on for a little walk here, so
Okay.
bear with me. I'm going to let you know what I was thinking.
Okay.
What I was thinking of is the role of anger to mobilize, and I think a lot of people's discomfort with anger. And I think about it from some of the, let's see, like the Tibetan and Hindu deities. This is the long walk I'm going to go on, Jeffrey. Like Mahakala or Kali, these like destructive, fierce, like outwardly we might describe as angry forces, but are really there to bring about change and renewal. And I guess where my brain was going is like, wow, it feels like the benefits of anger, at least maybe in Western culture, are a little scary for us. And we might not have the right words or relationship to it. But when we need to act, we need some of that fire. But that fire, I think, scares most of us, and we label it as anger. And I'm just really stuck by this mismatch in how we think these things exist in the world.
So I think what you're pointing to here, and this may go a little deep, so I apologize in advance, but what I'm thinking about is for most of us, when we get angry, we identify with the wronged party. And so then part of that story becomes, I got to make you aware that you screwed up. And you owe me an apology and a promise to never do that again and whatever else, right? So I've used anger to say, that tells me you clearly did something wrong. A more spiritual or awakened or nervous system view of anger is that it's a message, it's energy. It is neither good nor bad. Anger, depending upon its expression, can have implications all across the board, right? And so I talk about there can be skillful ways to express our anger, which does less damage and helps bring up more connection and more movement. But that requires a slight shift in not seeing our anger as the truth, but seeing our anger as a nervous system reaction to an experience. And the nervous system may be accurate in assessing it. It may be matched neuroception, or it might be mismatched neuroception where it's inaccurate to the current time and situation. It was probably accurate to your childhood or when you were younger or interacting with your parents, and your nervous system is now transferring that on to your spouse, your boss, your friend, your neighbor, your racquetball person, your shopping buddy. We tend to extend this into other people. So learning what we're reacting to is part of the deeper process here. Again, it's not about making you wrong in any way, shape, or form. It's about understanding, like our writer already does. She doesn't just get angry for nothing. It's not like someone says, "Hi, how's your day?" And she goes, "Oh, bug off." She gets triggered and then she gets angry. So she's aware something is already putting her, and even when we use the word trigger, it's generally understood that it's an event, a reaction, a feeling that resonates so closely with one's traumatic history that it unleashes a very strong dysregulated state of either anger or fear or shame or despair or avoidance or dissociation and numbness. That it's again, it's how we relate to the feeling that's transformative, not whether or not we have it. If we just believe that it's just face value, I'm angry at you and you're a jerk, that doesn't get us far except us versus them and you're wrong. The more awakened perspective, the more mature perspective is to also understand that when people are dysregulated, they're hurting. And people act very unskillfully when they're dysregulated. I've said bad things, hurtful things when I've been angry. And, when I'm not angry, I wouldn't utter something like that, right? But if I'm angry, I have easier access to potentially hurtful words and actions. That's universal for us. But if we can get out of the shame or blame or judgment trap and just see, oh, I'm angry, that's information. I must feel disappointed, hurt, or that something is unjust or unfair. What might that be right now? What got brought up in this conversation or that television show or the thing I was just thinking about or the article that I read? Something's beginning to get you to clue into a charge. And sometimes that charge is going to have anger, and it's all good. It's all part of beginning to get to know ourselves. Some people feel like I can't explore my anger unless I can absolutely control it. Well, that almost puts like the cart before the horse. Like, how can you control anything you don't really know directly? You only are afraid to know. And, I mean, I have people I've worked with that are really afraid of harming others with their anger, but they don't. I mean, never have, but they're terrified that they could be like a very abusive parent or caretaker who use their anger in harmful ways.
You bring up an interesting point here, Jeffrey, because what I notice and what some others may be noticing is like anger doesn't feel completely safe for me. It doesn't feel like a place that I like to go to. I don't like wearing that coat. And yeah, maybe just giving you the opportunity to help me understand what's going on and help others understand when we feel this like scary. I don't want to touch that.
Right. So again, someone might find themselves automatically defaulting, not choosing, but automatically defaulting to anger because anger was more safe in their family. Either anger was allowed expression or vulnerability, sadness, and shame were not allowed expression. But something lined it up that expressing anger is easier. My family, anger was very dangerous. It was expressed, but never by the children. So I do not like getting angry. And it feels threatening to me to get very angry. I can feel anger. I'm very aware of my anger, but I can also feel this co-arising of some sympathetic fear about the edge of my anger. It's small. It's not huge, right? But I can feel that it's not just me being angry. It's me also being afraid of what destructive things I might be impulsive to do. Not that I necessarily do them, but afraid of doing them. Ultimately afraid, my nervous system is afraid that what will come out of my mouth is what came out of my parents' mouths.
Yeah, that's interesting. That helped me clarify. Like, I can get angry, but it's expressing that anger sometimes that feels the unsafe part.
Right. So there's 3 levels of this, right? There are some people who can get angry but not express it. There are people who can get angry and then make the movement to express it and choose to express it in either a direct, angry way, or what I advocate for is, if you can, to talk about the anger instead of to be the anger. Because when I'm being the anger with you, I'm pushing you out of the conversation. If I want to connect with you about anger and help us work with it, I need to come in a way that doesn't push you out in the beginning, that doesn't guilt you or shame you or make you the fault of it. And my anger is going to want to tend to put that kind of distancing in there. So I have to be aware that if I approach you from anger, I'm not going to gain the repair or the connection I might be seeking. Instead, I'll just stir up more tension between us. But it may also mean that, for example, our writer defaults to anger. You don't default to anger, right? And either way, it's binding each of you. For her, well, for our anonymous caller, we don't know if it's a male or female. For that writer, it's annoying, right? And a problem, but it's the default. For you, or for others who have a harder time going to anger, we could get curious about, well, what are you doing with your anger? Because, like, we all do get angry. We get annoyed at life and at other people. We get disappointed. We get let down. We feel something is unfair or wrong or unjust. And what happens for some people is they can't even identify when they're angry, let alone express it. That they're so cut off from their anger that they can't even recognize and acknowledge it. They can recognize sadness and they can recognize fear and terror, but even though they absolutely have access to fight, to anger, to irritability, it's almost like they disconnect from it consciously when they're feeling it. They can be raising their voice in an angry way in the session, and when I reflect back to them about they seem angry or frustrated, no, not at all, in a slightly angry way. But it's because in their experience, they truly aren't feeling anger or irritation. It's just being blocked. You can see it and hear it, but their experience is, no, of course not. So how we find our way around anger is very, very helpful. It points us towards both what was safe and not safe in our childhood, and currently then what is still feeling safe and unsafe from what's left over from our childhood, right? Our nervous system learns how to protect primarily in our growing up years, and then just keeps engaging in those automatic responses for the rest of our life unless we do something to begin to shift them.
Now, I teased it in the intro a little bit because I was intuiting there are some people out there that might experience this from their experience, right? They see the times that they get angry, but there's others who are noticing this anger arising in someone else that they're interacting with. And I just want to make sure we don't leave this time without maybe some clarity on what we can do when we notice the anger rising in another person, and how we protect our nervous system, even the right word here, how we don't get triggered by that.
So it's again, it's asking something from us. Most of us personalize our states, meaning if I'm angry at you, in my mind, I'm assuming I'm angry at something that's truthful. I'm assuming you've done something wrong or disappointing. I'm assuming I have every right, or a good right, to feel irritated, annoyed, whatever with you. As long as I do that, I'm missing the ultimate message of anger, and I'm trying to find someone to blame. So a different way is beginning to see that just because I'm dysregulated, actually, especially because I'm dysregulated, means that I'm not going to see truth. I'm not going to see things as they truly are. I'm not going to see you or what you said in the true light. I'm going to see you and hear what you said through my state. I've quoted, Aeneas Nin, you do not see things as they are, you see things as you are. And so when I'm angry, the world is irritated and angry and unsafe, and I don't like it. When I'm not angry, I don't have that perception. So part of it is also understanding that if we get angry, doesn't mean we're bad, doesn't mean we're broken. It just means our nervous system is giving us information. And it's information that we're not regulated. We're not feeling safe. We're feeling threatened in some way. But if we begin to see that, truly see that, know that in our own experience, we are then in a place where we can offer that as a compassionate understanding of others. So I used to get reactive when my wife, Annalisa, would raise her voice in a certain tone to me, primarily because of how I was raised and how my mom spoke to me. And her tone could remind me of that. It was never exactly like it, and she didn't speak to me in exactly like the same ways, but the tone and some of the wordings were close enough that it would initiate shame. And then I would get angry. I would get angry at her trying to defend myself. Over the years, as I've worked on this, I come to see that when she does that, it's because she's dysregulated about something. It actually can have something to do with me, but sometimes it has very little to do with me and a lot more to do with she's dysregulated. And when I have that space, I don't react as much in anger to her. I actually react much more out of care. Oh, I'm sorry that you're disappointed about that. I can see that you're really upset about a few things, including your feeling that I forgot this, or I'm not, prioritizing you like you need me to prioritize you. But there's a way of being with it where we have a relational opening where I can come and connect with you about this instead of cast you as enemy and need to keep you at arm's length from me. So there's a way that we can come into relationship with our anger and relationship to other people's anger where we don't just start this endless cycle of ping pong, bouncing off each other and climbing higher as we do it till we move towards that crescendo of anger and flight and just, okay, now shut down. I'm not going to talk anymore. And it's all over. I want to come back to our writer for one other thing, is that regulating would be helpful. Also engaging in some self-compassion practices, because I believe that there's some shame involved in this for our writer, that when they get triggered, I think they're closer to this urgent need, quick need to defend, to reestablish boundaries, to establish some kind of power instead of sinking into that collapse and shutdown where we don't have power, to rise up out of irritation, to have some agency, right? So it is an attempt to regulate. It's not an attempt to throw gas on a situation to make it worse. It's an attempt to find some place towards more safety and a sense of being more self-protective. And again, we feel we need more self-protection through anger when we are somehow perceiving a threat. If we can begin to sense what that threat is, we can work with it Most of us don't. We just get angry. And then sometimes we get upset with ourselves for getting angry, or sometimes we just stay upset for the other person for making us angry in the first place. We don't really look at what's really driving this underneath it. So I think that for all of us, there's a lot that we can do to become more comfortable with the whole range of feelings that we have, and to realize all of them are necessary, and some we will be visiting much more often. And again, that's where we can get curious. Why do I go to anger? What is it about what I was feeling 3 seconds before I shifted into anger? And what kind of pain was that? Was that hurt? Was that disappointment? Did I feel someone was shaming me or pointing out that I'm less than? I think as we get closer to those, you'll be able to see what's fueling the anger. You can begin to slow down some of these automatic reactions a little bit, get a better sense of that your anger is a response to pain and threat and lack of safety, and not because you're a bad person or you're just highly irritable at everything. There's a rhyme and a reason to this.
Well, Jeffrey, I want to thank you for unpacking that with us today. And I want to thank our questioner for the vulnerability and the courage and the act of sending that question to us. And I'm wondering if you can tell our viewers and our listeners where they can send their question in and where they can find out more about you and your work.
Thank you, Steve. I'd love to. I also want to take a moment to express my gratitude and appreciation for a writer today who shared a question for our podcast. And you are warmly invited to share your questions with us as well, too. We welcome every question. And if you'd like to leave a question for us, one way to do it is through our voicemail dedicated to this podcast. And that number is 1-866-357-5156. If for some reason you can't reach that exchange from an international number, feel free to send me an audio file attached to an email, or if you can't attach the audio file, just send me an email with your written question to hello@drjeffreyrutstein.com. And finally, I've created a free gift on my site that goes into a bit deeper of an overview of the nervous system perspective that we speak about here, and also go through some guided practices that you can use to help you shift states. And to get that, you just need to go to drjeffreyrutstein.com/links, LINKS, and then that'll take you to another page where you just press on the link for the free gift, and it'll send you right there. Steve, thank you so much for being my partner in these conversations and explorations. I always enjoyed the time with you.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one as well, and all of our times. And thanks for your wisdom, and I'll see you next week.
That sounds good. And remember, this podcast is for informational purposes only and isn't a substitute for professional physical or mental health care. If you are struggling, please reach out to a qualified health professional. Thank you all for being with us. Hope to see you next time. Bye for now.